Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right. I myself am strange and unusual. Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea, because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven. Today we're going to be discussing water magic and the Loch Ness Monster and a few of the Loch Ness's cousins.
Yay.
Sharon, how was your week?
Yeah, well, I have done my first, attempt at long distance magic. I don't normally do spells for other people unless I'm doing it in a group and we're doing something together, or if I'm just doing it for myself or like a loved one, I guess like a pet or something. But I've never done like long distance magic. And my older sister, as you know, Sarah, she was reaching out to me about like a crappy week and some crappy luck she was having. And she's like, can you just fix it? Do a spell for me, please? And so I was like, at first I was like, well, no, I'm busy and I'm tired and I don't have the energy and I don't even know if I could do that, but let me think on it. Like a couple days go by and I just think about, like, fuck it. If there's one person in this world I could probably help manifest some things for, it's my freaking sister. Like, we grew up together. We shared a room together. We had so much just emotions and energy, and through the fights and the good times, like, our spirits know each other. So I think I could help her out. So I decided to do some like grocery store witchery. Like here at our grocery stores, I can't really remember if in Salem, Oregon, there's like the religious candle section or not.
Yes, there is.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we have that here. A lot of them have like more Catholic imagery and stuff like that. But I did find one, it was like 33 essences, but I think it was like in Spanish. And it just had like a clover, a couple in love, and a heart, and like money, and like I think even like a Buddha, like just a mixture of like really good and prosperous things on it. And then the candle itself was like a rainbow. So kind of like getting all that kind of candle magic for green, yellow, red, blue, whatever. And so I was like, okay, this is what I need for both of us, like one for her, one for me. And I'm going to just try to manifest us like some really good luck and some prosperity, like good budgeting, like good decision making, and really just opening up to good vibes and trying to repel any kind of like reverse effects or adverse effects or negative effects. And so I just hunkered down and did some awesome like candle magic, and I had a good time.
Nice. And so did she light a candle at her house, or you just lit both at your house?
So I got one each and lit them both here.
Okay, nice.
I just got her involved by like taking little videos of her and of the candle and like filming it for her so she could look at it, and if she wanted to like meditate on it, or if there's anything she wanted to project onto it, I was like, okay, say it now as I'm showing it to you. And I gave her time to like think on it. And so for both of the candles, I just tried to like do a little bit of chaos magic and Wicca magic just to like, I don't know, get that energy out there into the universe. And so I'm letting them burn right now as I'm speaking. They're over on an altar and just burning down. And I am feeling really positive about it.
That's awesome. I love this.
Yeah. So I am hoping I get like a call of like that she's having a good day after these candles burn down. I feel like that's when the spell will be over.
Of course. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Such good sisterly love.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was like, I don't know if you're sarcastic, but I took you totally seriously. No, my sister.
Being serious.
like Sarah, like when she asked me.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Because I was like, did she really think that I could do this? Was she that frustrated? It's like when agnostic people become religious when they're upset. Like, God, just help me. I swear I'll be good. It's like she finally was like, okay, I'm down for your Wiccan methods. Let's do this.
She was really going through a hard time, though.
Yeah. And I think we all have those bad weeks.
Absolutely.
And then aside from that, I've told you this off podcast, but I feel like it's time to open up a little bit and give an update to our listeners on one of my like New Year's resolutions that I was really open with about. And that was like how I wanted to daily meditate. And I have not meditated in like 3 weeks or more. And it's been so much harder than I thought. And I really kind of closed myself off once I got some badass results from meditating. And so I was at my altar in my living room where I have some urns from my pets and pictures of like my deceased loved ones and ancestors. And after my Samhain ritual, I just left like my planchette from my Ouija board there just to like soak up my vibes and that energy and just feel that connection grow kind of thing. And so I remember I lit my meditation candle and I was meditating and feeling really distracted, like something was wanting me to play with the planchette. And part of meditating every day was like tapping into my intuition and trying to just align my chakras and quiet the mind. But my intuition was just screaming at me to do this. And so I bust out my Ouija board and I had like this random spirit come through. And I'm sure when a lot of people hear that, they just freak out and think you're being crazy or unsafe. You need to be careful. But I'm really careful with the Ouija boards. I feel very comfortable with them. I only welcome like love and light through. I have protection candles. I'm always asking for guidance, and I have my circles. So I'm really safe when I use these things too, just for listeners. Right. But I ended up like talking with this entity that ended up needing help moving on. And since I've never talked to a ghost that wasn't in my family before, it felt really kind of freaky and weird. And the Ouija board was a good tool to like help them. It was like such a good tool for me since I don't have really strong like psychic connections or anything. But through like the Ouija board, I was able to figure out that it needed help passing on, and I asked it like what would help it, and it started spelling the word boat. And I was like, okay, this thing needs a boat to move on. So I'm going to think about like what you said, Wendy, about like house cleansings and how sometimes they just need to envision that warm light.
Right.
So like I started describing, I was like, okay, you see this warm light and it's yellow and bright, and so bright in fact that like when you close your eyes, it's still shining through your eyelids and warming up your skin. And when you open your eyes, you're going to see this boat coming down, and like in the boat are these specific people, and like this information is just like coming into my brain. And so I'm like really trying to just go with the influence and go with the intuition and just like, I don't know, trust in it. And so I felt like his mom was on the boat, a grandmother, and I felt like some like kid maybe in his family named Timothy and a dog. And I was like, okay, I'm just keep rolling with it and saying these things. And I encouraged the entity to like get on the boat, and how everyone's happy to see him, and how the boat like goes up and takes him over to the other side, and my voice becomes like a distant echo. And if it's working, let me know. And then the planchette is like, yes. And then it goes to like goodbye all by itself.
I love it. You know what? This is a very amazing story. Very.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. So can I ask just a couple of questions? Like, how many days in a row did you meditate before this happened?
I feel like at that point it had been like the 2-week marker.
See, this is what I'm talking about, people. That the more in tune we are with the universe, the more in tune we are with ourselves, the more that these, because we already have a belief in this kind of stuff, just opens this other door. That veil just keeps getting thinner and thinner for you to be able to see what's on the other side.
Yes, synchronicities and alignments. And like, two, just to give a little more background information for anyone that wasn't aware, I've been going through like a yoga teacher training program, which has really been, I swear, like unlocking stuff and making me more aware spiritually on another level, because we talk about that kind of stuff and the yoga philosophies and the way of life and just all that kind of stuff. And when you do yoga, there's a meditation practice as well involved in that. So that whole meditation process I had already been doing on a weekly to twice a week kind of thing about 2 or 3 months. So I feel like when I started the daily meditation, I felt super aligned.
Right.
Super in tune.
Right.
So if you're doing meditation for 2 weeks and nothing happens, that's probably completely natural.
Right. Right.
But like when he's saying, the more you open up to it, the more you quiet the mind and get in tune and align those chakras, like you might unlock something. Like I always wanted to see ghosts. I was always fascinated by ghosts. I grew up watching the shows. And I guess to circle back to why I was saying I stopped meditating is because that experience was really profound to me. It was electrifying. It was an exciting experience. But now I guess I'm scared because I stopped meditating. I haven't meditated since. And like, I guess I'm nervous because I felt like, whoa, if this random person thinks they can talk to me, who else thinks they can talk to me?
Right.
What else is going to come through? And so like every day I watch ghost shows, I look up ghost locations to go to. I'm talking about ghost hunting with my girlfriends. But it's like, I'm afraid to meditate now? Like, what am I afraid of?
Right. Well, that one-on-one contact. And you know how it is. We feel kind of crazy when things like that happen. It's hard
Right.
to let go because these labels and normal, what considers somebody to be normal, have been placed on us for years since birth. We've been told that this stuff is not good, it's bad, and there's all these. And it's not just our family. It's like a lot of families think that magic is evil, that any sort of abilities, anything paranormal brings about evil.
I think it's the crazy thing. That's what it is.
Yeah, and the
Because,
crazy thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't see anything. It was just that intuition. Like when we talked about in our episode Empaths and Roswell, we talked about that. Is it that clairsentience or something like that? It's
Oh, yeah.
one of like you just have an intuition and a knowing. And we talked
Right.
about that episode, how it's like, wow, I'm probably going to unlock something. Well, lo and behold, it's unlocking. And instead of being like super ready for it, like the X-Men I want to be, I end up like shying away from it.
Right.
And it's super weird. But like, I think maybe I just need to meditate tonight, damn it, and start again.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. And, maybe something won't happen, but...
Right. Probably not. It's maybe again, but not every day, all the time. I guess it's just because there's that doubt in myself. Well, am I crazy? And how can I tell this to people without them judging me? But
Right. And also, my advice, if you're willing to accept it, is that you're in control of the situation. So let's say you are meditating and something like that happens again, but you're not open to it. You're not open to the experience at this time. Maybe you have other things going on and you don't have enough energy for it. Don't be afraid to say, I can't help you right now. But you have to tell them that you can't help them right now.
dude, I seriously have been saying that a lot. Like, because I think maybe I've heard you say that before because I've been really interviewing about your experiences. So you are in the back of my head sometimes. Like I'll be going to bed and I'm like, nothing bother me right now. I have to open in the morning.
Right.
And I just, for
exactly.
some reason, I'm aware that they might be there and or listening or aware of me. And so
Right.
I'm always sending out like fuck off vibes.
Right. Yeah. Like I've designated certain days of the week where I can help them, but I have to not work the next day. You know what I mean? I have to have the energy to deal with whatever it is they need to show me.
Yeah.
So
That's
it can
funny.
be overwhelming.
For
So,
sure. And it's so funny because I was always so thirsty for something, but it's not what you expect. It's not what
Right.
you think of when you think of like, oh, cool witch powers.
Right. Well, I still think you have other abilities in there. Didn't I say, if you're okay with me saying it?
Yeah.
I still think you have this ability to know about an object, or if there's a spirit attached to an object. I still think you have that ability.
I am now going to just say I will believe you because things have been unlocking. So you could totally be right. And this whole ability of like hearing them and getting that weird intuition and knowing, I think it could only grow if you allow it.
Right.
And
right.
so as soon as I start being more accepting, maybe I'll see something. And that's a lot of my fear as well. I'm so
Right.
afraid of being home alone and seeing something and not being quite prepared for that.
Right. And then it's true, it's like, how they're always saying metaphorically when, you open a door and then another one opens and another one opens. That's exactly how this paranormal stuff is, right? And the more magic we do, or the more we're willing to believe, then that other side, whatever you want to call it, starts showing itself more and more, and then it branches out. It's like you're not just seeing ghosts, you might be seeing something else.
Ooh, yes.
So
like alien owls just watching.
Right. Exactly. So the more open you are to the experience, the more the universe will show to you.
You're so right. I feel like this is a good time to transition into some of the documentaries we soaked up this week.
Yes, absolutely. So we both watched Hellier, which is this kind of 5-part episodic documentary on YouTube made by, it was Dana and... Dana? Is it Dana?
It is Dana.
Dana. Okay, so Dana and Greg Newkirk and their team of people did this. I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like we should talk about this, and and everybody should Google this, search for it, look them up. They are pretty amazing.
YouTube.
Free to watch. Yep. Such a good documentary.
It is. If you're anything like us and really into the weird paranormal aspects of life, I think the way that they investigate it is really refreshing.
Yes, extremely, because they're using, I mean, she used Magick. Dana uses Magick and paranormal research to combine. And it's like it's kind of, for me, it was like eye-opening. I was like, oh my gosh.
Right. I didn't know you could
Why
do
haven't
that.
I been doing this all along?
Right. And that's kind of like, now that we're saying that out loud, it's kind of like my Ouija board meditation experience. It's like, I don't expect all these things to culminate together, doing yoga, culminating and opening up to seeing ghosts, which leads you to this and leads you to that. Like,
right.
It's so cool. And as a paranormal investigator, I didn't even think about doing spells to invite spirits in. I mean, I always thought about doing spells to protect myself and spells to cleanse, but not to cooperate and work with.
Exactly.
And that's where it really opened up my eyes. I was like, oh, you could do like an invoking spell to invite that entity out to communicate with you.
Right.
Genius.
Plus there were other things that they did. I don't want to give too much away because I want everybody to watch it, but there were certain things that they did in their paranormal investigation that I actually learned something new. So I was like, dang, I've been in this paranormal investigation thing for a long time, and then to see something new is refreshing. It's just, so good.
Like, we're trying not to give too much away about the documentary, but essentially they are investigating like a weird case that they hear about, and their whole point is like, why don't the Bigfoot communities talk with the alien communities more, and why aren't the alien communities talking with the paranormal ghost, group hunters more? Like, if all these type of people were to corroborate their information and their techniques, it could really expand and only get more information that way. And it kind of was eye-opening, because as we do this podcast, it just seems like everything is pretty much connected.
Right, exactly. And so they mention a lot of information about synchronicities in there, which we're going to talk about in a couple of episodes. And then what else? They were basically investigating this area outside of Hellier. What state was it?
Was it Kentucky, I think? Yeah,
Hellier, Kentucky. That area had some activity, and they were investigating it. They go into way more detail than that, but that's the basic information, this gist of the documentary. So totally, you guys should watch it. I was blown away. Just blown away.
Yeah, and it's really fun seeing how they investigate, and it's made really well and shot really well, and it's just like, I started episode 1, and even my skeptic husband was watching it and like not getting too mad at it, which he normally can't stand, like ghost hunting shows, but I was like, oh, awesome, it's so well made that he's putting up with this with me, great! And like the investigations they do are so cool, and before I knew it, I was up till like 4 a.m. before I got to the 5th part, and I was like, I need to go to sleep so that I can fully appreciate the resolution, and I'm going to bed.
Yeah, it was filmed really well. Like even my kids, I was watching it in the living room, and my kids came to get something out of the kitchen, and they were like, are you watching a movie? I was like, no, this is a documentary. This is YouTube.
It's free. Yeah, that's what's incredible.
Yeah, I was like, it was just such an amazing film.
Yeah, and like circling back to like Dana and how she uses like witchcraft and stuff, I was like, ooh, let me see if I can find her on YouTube. Maybe she has like a YouTube channel, and she doesn't have like specific videos that she makes herself, but she does have a channel where she'll like share stuff she's been in. And so I found out that she was in this Canadian ghost hunting TV show that aired before like we had TAPS, before Ghost Hunters, before Ghost Adventures. It was up in Canada in like 2002 or 3, and it was so funny. I sent you the link. I don't know if you had time to check it out, Wendy.
I haven't had time. Yeah, sorry.
But it was great. Like, it was like 5 girls, and they like, there was I guess he had like a British accent narrator, and he would be like, here's the girly ghost hunters. As they enter the lighthouse, they get an odd feeling. And it was like, dude, we don't need you describing how these chicks feel. I'm pretty sure they could have done a great job describing it. But he narrated everything, and it was so cheesy. But them themselves was really fun. They are using Ouija boards. They scry. They've got dowsing rods. They also have one girl who was really into the scientific part of it all. And it was just really neat to see a female group doing that.
How empowering for the female person.
Yeah.
I love it.
Totally. If I saw that show as a kid, I would have ate it up. Like, we definitely didn't have Canadian TV growing up at that time.
No.
So super fun stuff.
Awesome.
There
Love
was
it.
another documentary that is definitely worth mentioning. I think it came out in maybe December or January.
Yeah, I think it was December. I posted just a little blurb about it in December when it was first coming out. It's this documentary called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. And I totally suggest you guys do this or check into this one. It has Jeremy Corbell as the interviewer, kind of journalist dude.
He's the writer, director, filmer,
Right.
editor. This is like his
Right.
third movie, and he does
Yeah.
really well for himself, self-making paranormal investigation movies. He did one about Skinwalker Ranch, and he did one on Netflix that was about alien. Is it probes? Not probes.
No, it was
implants,
the implants.
right?
Yeah.
What was that one
It was
called?
like Patient 13, I think.
Did you watch that one?
I did. It was really good.
Okay, I need to watch that one. So that one's a little more
Yeah.
accessible because it's on Netflix, but the Bob Lazar
Right.
one I think is like maybe Amazon.
Yeah, you have
Prime.
to rent it. Yeah, through like Prime. I think that he said you could also rent it through Google Play, Apple. And then he also said that if you watch it on Apple, Corbell, that is Jeremy, we listened to him on a podcast. But he said that you can also, if you get it through Apple iTunes, then you get extra bonus content.
Yeah. So you should break down like Bob Lazar for our listeners if they don't know who he is.
So Bob Lazar is this guy. He's kind of like an astrophysicist. He came out in the 80s saying that he worked at this. I don't want to give too much away, but if you don't know who Bob Lazar is, then you
I
should
feel
really
like you
look
can
him
give
up. I
that
feel like
information
everybody.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, he said that he worked at this under kind of cover facility, government facility. It was actually in the side of a mountain in Nevada, and he called it, I forget the name that he called it. It was S something, like S is in Sam something. He actually labeled it something that the military would label something like this, but he actually was working in Area 51.
Right.
Or what we consider to be Area 51 today. And so he says that he worked on some back engineering of craft that like alien craft.
Yeah, like reverse engineering UFOs.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And so he didn't come out and say that these were the UFOs that they found in Roswell, but I feel like they alluded that these ships that they had were related to the crash in Roswell, New Mexico, which is
based on
crazy.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, based on that, which is crazy because, I mean, we talked about the Roswell incident, and I didn't think that it was alien related, but maybe my eyes were closed and I only looked at
what Google had to offer, because Google
Right.
has made it hard for us to find information on aliens.
Yes. And even when I
So-
read books, I felt like I didn't know if I could trust the information or not, because I did read books on that. But I still feel like there was something I was missing.
There's
And
cash to be
so-
made off of alien conspiracies, so that's where I want to
Absolutely.
know what the motivation is for telling the story. And that's why Bob Lazar is fascinating, because he has no motivation and he's made no money off his telling his story.
And it's hurt his life. He hasn't been able to find work. He's been raided by the FBI. He does have a job, I should say, but he didn't find
He's
it
been
in
really
the same...
discredited because he said
Right.
that there was UFO technology and that the government knew about it and they're hiding it. And so basically they've been trying to tell him, everyone, that he's a liar, that they can't even prove that he went to universities in the first place, that he never worked there. So it's this crazy conspiracy, and I guess the documentary is just trying to let you decide, like, do you believe Bob Lazar, or do you believe that the government...
Right.
How did you take it?
I never really gave much credence to the Bob Lazar story, but after watching this, like at first, it's not that I thought he was lying. It's just that I didn't think it was big enough.
Yeah.
Like I felt like there wasn't enough hype about it. Like people should have been talking more about it. And the things that I learned in that film, like he talks about, I don't want to give too much away, but he does talk about this specific element 115, which if you Google Bob Lazar and element 115, you can learn a little bit more about that. But element 115 was this atomic energy that we didn't have in our possession. No other entity had this in their possession, but this government agency that he worked for, he learned how to make this element 115. Mm-hmm. And I found out after doing some research, because it was the first time I'd really heard that word, element 115. And so I was like, I'm going to do a Google search on this. And sure enough, I think it was 2016, Russia claims that they were the ones who made element 115, but just recently. So he's known about this element since 1980 something. And they're just saying that, oh, it was only made now. Well, if it was only made now, how did he frickin' know about it? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool documentary, and if you're into like government conspiracies and aliens, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think it's cool to like spread the conversation and get the information out there to the people so that we can make up our own minds about it.
Absolutely.
I kind of think I believe Bob Lazar's tale, and I believe a lot of that stuff because of like the Disclosure Project movie and how the government is kind of trying to keep technology at bay just to keep us struggling and to keep us fighting over stupid shit, you know? And have control over us. Now I sound like a crazy conspiracy.
Conspiracy theories, my jam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are some good documentaries.
Yeah, very good. Check them out, you guys. Okay, guys, we're going to move on. It's time for Cauldron Topics. So today we're talking about water magic. And in my research, I found out just a little bit of history first. It's just a little blurb. In 5th century BCE, Greek philosophy said that all of life comes from 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And so I also found out that the element of water can be used in spells and rituals related to purification, love, psychic awareness, understanding, dreams, sleep, peace, and friendship. And when I say understanding, I mean it could also be just understanding a situation or understanding your dreams.
Nice.
Yeah. I also wanted to pick some goddesses to relate to the magic. So I did find out that this is kind of my favorite one. Aphrodite is a Greek goddess of water who could represent beauty and sexual love. It was kind of interesting because in philosophy, it says that she comes from sea foam. So I had never heard that before. That was something new. I don't know the validity of that, but I thought it was cute.
Yeah, I really like Aphrodite, and I've even thought about like giving her own altar and like making seashells, and she's just so feminine. Like if you're trying to tap into that divine feminine energy, she's so perfect for giving you like inner strength and confidence and feeling sexy and powerful. Exactly.
And then I came across this Celtic goddess named Boann. It's actually spelled Boann, like Bo-Ann, but that last N is really a D when they pronounce it. It's kind of weird. But she can provide you inspiration in everyday life and also be used for fertility. So you can call upon her and your magic if you're having the need to feel inspired.
Nice.
Yeah. Then I came across the Hindu goddess of Ganga. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Ganga. And she can help give you the ability to cleanse away your bad karma. So like if you have bad juju on you, or if you have committed some things where maybe karma is kind of attacking you, you can call on her to get rid of that bad karma. I also found out that when you're doing water magic, if you can be on the beach or near a body of water, I mean, you don't have to, but if you are in one of those areas, it's going to help you manifest your spell a little bit further. And you can actually draw on the power of the water while doing your spell. Just find a nice secluded spot. And I thought it would be fun if you did decide to go to the water to do a spell, then you should pack a little go bag with a mobile altar in there and take it with you.
That'd be cool, like a little mint box you convert or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then I found out that if you use beach sand in a water spell, it's going to aid in bringing a more powerful aspect to your water magic. So I didn't know you could just collect it. And so I was thinking, what if we got these little decorative jars and then you could use them on your altar space to provide you just a stronger magic? Or you can also spread the sand between several jars and just kind of use them as decorations around the house and do a water protection spell so that it protects your space.
I like that because, as I've mentioned before, I have water in containers. but I never, like, I have some Pacific Ocean, but I never thought to put freaking Pacific sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so much easier to
so
transport and use and sprinkle in your magic,
Exactly.
Love it.
There are some things that you can use when doing water spells that will help aid you. And one of the things that I found out is if you can't use ocean water, but you need to use some sort of ocean water in the spell, you can just add salt to it. I typically would use kosher salt, just because the coarse texture of it kind of reminds me of sand, but you use what you have because that's what magic is all about. Mm-hmm. And then some herbs and plants that you might use in your spell. Just so you know, each of these herbs or plants can represent your water element. So if you don't actually have water that you want to use, or you don't want to waste water, you can use one of these things. There's the water lily, which can be used to represent a healing in a spell. It could be healing your mindset or your own body. You can use aloe vera to represent the goddess Aphrodite. And types of water spells you might use this would be for warding yourself against accidents or misfortunes, or you may want to use it for a love and beauty spell. There's also kind of like a juice in it, in the aloe vera, which you could use to make a spelled kind of facial mask. It'd be very good to use if you're trying to heal your skin. So let's say you had a really bad sunburn, maybe you'd want to use that. And then apple represents wisdom, the soul, love, and beauty. And I thought it would be cute if you cut it into slices, made it into a pentagram, used it as a spell, and then you could eat it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so you could gain some wisdom. Let's see, some colors that could be used would be water blue. And when I'm saying colors, it's like the aspect of your altar, I guess I should say. So you want to use these colors in the altar. The color deep blue, which would represent mental or emotional waters, and then blue-black, which represents spiritual water for working on the unconscious spirit. And then some stones and crystals you might want to incorporate would be aquamarine, amethyst, blue tourmaline, opal, and pearl. And then I also found out that the use of shells provides a strong feminine energy that brings the element of the ocean and the moon into your spell. And the shells have been already bathed in moonlight and ocean water, right? If you're using an actual real spell.
Yes.
And some of those have been out there for hundreds of years. So imagine the power that they have in them.
This is making me so happy. Like, this is
right?
describing my altar as it is right now. And so I'm just feeling so good.
I love it. But shells are actually really extremely helpful when doing any sort of past life work. So if you find yourself wanting to figure out your past life, I think it could be even with your current past life. So meaning let's say you think you've had a bad childhood, but you've repressed memories, and so maybe you want to dig into those a little bit further. You could use these shells to help you. Well, some people like to.
No, totally. I think it's good to like unpack that stuff, especially when in magic. I've done that before. It helps.
Yes.
But
and then you can also use them in a water spell or wear them around your neck to encourage emotion, love, intuitions, and prophetic dreams.
I love that. That's so powerful. Like, I just always grabbed shells. I always collected shells as a kid. And so when I started making my altar, it slowly became a very water altar. And so I do have like Oregon seashells up on there all the time. And
nice.
So it's really great to hear that other people are using them as well in their magic. And there's just a whole nother way to appreciate them. I didn't even think about the fact that they have soaked up so much ocean energy and so much moon energy.
It's just so awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me too. I actually found one of my favorite like water goddesses via Pinterest, because I'll look at pagan art a lot on Pinterest, and it knows that I'm a weird witch, so those are a lot of the things that come up on my feed. I found this beautiful image of Yamaya, which is like an African goddess, ocean goddess. And she's just so beautiful. She kind of reminded me of Storm, being a huge X-Men fan, and I'm always mentioning X-Men, but
yes.
Just standing in the ocean and being so powerful over the tides. I really love to think about her whenever I'm by the water and thinking about water powers. Like, just a really great goddess. I think that in a lot of like Haitian voodoo, she's really worshipped as a moon goddess as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think that wraps up our cauldron. Are we ready to move on unless you had anything else to say?
I could talk forever about water magic, but yeah,
I know, right? I mean, did I leave anything out?
No, I loved it.
Okay.
I feel like because it's something we both use, it'll probably come up lots of times on podcasts. But I'm really glad we made the time to like specifically cover in cauldron today.
Yes, and I feel like I learned a few things. Like I didn't know about the sand.
Yeah,
I didn't know the use of that.
I didn't.
I know
think
my
about
daughter
it.
always had some. I know Clarissa always has sand, but she just always told me I'm going to use it in a spell. But she's so secretive about that kind of stuff because she doesn't
awesome.
want to share her magic.
Right,
So,
I get that. It's like exposing your power, and sometimes it can be like, no, if I keep it a secret, it's safer. Like, you know how people say don't say what you wish for on candles. It's very secretive.
Yeah,
so I totally get it. But I'm really glad you chose this as a topic, and I think we'll have to do all 4 elements eventually. We'll get them all covered.
Yeah, I think actually we'll probably do them within the next month, all the elements. I think on our calendar I was looking, and we actually have an element almost for every single week. We're kind of broken up a little bit in March, but we'll cover all of them within the next month.
Nice. And our topic for today does kind of tie into water. You know, water has such mysterious and mythical associations that run so deep that just about every large lake on Earth has rumors and legends of monsters that dwell within. And sightings have actually been recorded as far back as 565 BC. So today, let's explore the magic of water more and learn about Nessie and Bessie, cryptid lake creatures that may be living among us. So whenever you talk about like these creatures, I think of Loch Ness Monster. Like she's the most infamous one. Yes. You know, she lives in Loch Ness, which is a freshwater lake located in the Scottish Highlands, and it actually has the largest volume of fresh water in Great Britain, and the body of water reaches the depths of nearly 800 feet and a length of about 23 miles. And I remember being a kid and going to the library and like seeing books with pictures of this really big like dinosaur like animal in the water and being like sold like, yep, I believe that 100%. I don't know how. I'm sure you were the same. Just imagine.
Yes, I totally was. Like I watched this on Ripley's Believe It or Not. I swear that's like every week Ripley's had some cool cryptid creature and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm so willing to believe in it, and I feel like a lot of people are. It's just something about, I don't know if it's like a childhood like nature about us or this, I don't know, scientific mind and wonder. Like we're just so willing to believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I was doing some research on like how this whole legend started, and there were recordings of drownings that people just believed to be done by monsters. The bodies never reappeared like in surface or got washed up, and so they just assumed back in the day that it was taken to like some other world. And it was said to be an evil spirit which not only lured travelers into their death by drowning, but took delight in doing so. So Nessie wasn't always like this sweet little creature. In Ireland, where the Scots originated, the country people believed that our world and reality is actually duplicated in an alternate underwater universe. And
whoa,
right? Just let
mind
that
blown.
sink in. And they thought that these like water animals like Nessie and Bessie were swimming in and out of these dimensions and even had other world owners and masters. And
just like Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. I never thought of it like that. And so they believed it basically, that whole thought system to suggest a belief in like a mirror world that was accessed by water. And this possibly stems from the primitive belief that reflection in water was a mysterious phenomenon with mystical qualities. So if you think about like older people back in the day, don't know a whole lot about science or the way shit works. They're looking and seeing their reflection. To them, that meant other world dimension.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah, right? And I found out that the earliest reference, a written reference to the monster in the Loch Ness was in the 7th century biography of Saint Columba, who's an Irish missionary who was introducing Christianity to Scotland, and this was 565 AD. And according to the biographer Saint Columba, he was on his way to visit the king of the northern Picts near Inverness, where he stopped at Loch Ness to confront a beast that was supposedly killing people in the lake. And in the tale, it's all part of collections, which in my mind sound kind of like embellishments and fictional stories. They were demonstrating the saint's power over animals animals. And earlier in the story, he came across a wild boar that he was able to control with his power, and he was able to neutralize like the poison of snakes and their venom and things like that. So he was just going from place to place, like shutting down crazy animals with his cool godlike powers. And so it says when he saw a water beast about to attack another person, Saint Columba intervened, invoking the name of God and commanding the creature to go back with all speed. And it said that the monster retreated and never harmed another human from then on out. And so when I read that, my mind was really blown, and it really right? I was like, what? And it turns out that the purpose was to really show that the saint in his religion is more powerful than the religion of the native pagan culture at that time, the Picts. The Picts were all a pagan race of people, and the culture there was all about worshiping animals and the elements, and I'm just like, damn, I want to go back to that time and learn from them. And so they thought, like, if you had dominion over a water beast like Nessie, this is going to show that God can have power over all of the elements and all of the creatures, and that Christianity is stronger than paganism. And so I was kind of bummed out to learn that the Loch Ness Monster might be a leftover tale of Christianity propaganda.
Oh, well, I hope not.
Yeah, because to me it sounded like a religious pamphlet, kind of like Begone Satan, that whole book I read about the possession case.
Oh, yeah.
Like they wanted to show that possession could be taken care of by the belief in God. So, I don't know. It kind of weirded me out. I never would have thought that that's where Nessie came from.
Right.
And then in like the 1930s, the Loch Ness Monster sightings began. At the time, there was this road like adjacent to the Loch Ness. It was just finished, and you had an unobstructed view of the lake. And so it was April of 1933. This couple was driving down the road, and they reported seeing like an enormous creature, and they kind of were comparing it to a dragon or like a prehistoric monster. And after it crossed their car's path, it disappeared into the water, and the incident was reported about in a Scottish newspaper, and it was a really big deal and got a lot of media attention in the area, and numerous sightings started following. Like, it blew up. So that December, this other newspaper called the Daily Mail, they ended up commissioning this dude named Marmaduke Wetherill, that's how it's pronounced, and he was like a big game hunter, and they were like, can you locate the Loch Ness Monster? And it turns out he couldn't find anything, just walking the surface and taking a boat. So he took things into his own hands, and he decided to make fake footprints walking around the loch.
What? No.
Yes. And he showed them.
It's guys like that. They just ruin it for the rest of us.
Yes. So he turns in the photos, and it turns out zoologists at the Natural History Museum determined that the tracks were identical to a hippo's. And so they found out that he was using like this horrible umbrella stand using actual hippo feet.
Hippo feet.
It was either an umbrella stand or an ashtray. I don't know if they could agree on what it was, but he had that. And he was just plopping it into the ground and taking pictures.
No.
So, yeah. And really, the fact is, though, no one really talks about that. Like, I had to dig that up. So news from that whole, like, footprint sighting just began to spur efforts for more fakes and more photos to come through. And the Loch Ness Monster legend has just grown and grown and grown. And it's never actually been diminished by hoaxes. So in 1934, the year after, there was an English physician, Robert Kenneth Wilson. He claimed to have a photo of Bessie. And today it's like one of the most iconic images, known as the surgeon photos.
Yes, it's cool.
It just looks like a little dinosaur, like a long neck underwater, but all you see is like a little hump and his long neck scooping up and looking over the surface. But on closer examination, you can tell it pretty much is a fake. It's really close to the land. There's just obvious like little ripples around it. The waves are like bigger than the creature itself. And he ended up kind of coming out and discrediting the entire thing. We find out that in 94, it was revealed that his whole photograph was a hoax, and it was paid for by the hippo ashtray guy, Marmaduke. And he paid for it. Yes, he was like, look, let's take these fake photos, but I can't submit them. No one will believe me. You submit them. And so he admitted that there was actually just this plastic and wooded like head, dinosaur kind of head toy attached to a toy submarine, and they took a photo.
So do you think, I don't know. Do you think he really hoaxed it, or that there is really a lake monster in there?
you're asking the heavy questions right out the gate.
I know, I'm sorry.
After investigating at this moment, I don't think Nessie is a thing, because the belief in Nessie was so strong from these hoaxes, and that in and of itself is the magic to me. I love that we all really want it to be true, because that whole surgeon's photo was international news. A lot of people were speculating that it was like a plesiosaur, which is a marine reptile, not a dinosaur. It's actually a reptile that went extinct about 65.5 million years ago. And since that sighting, all these Loch Ness monster hunters were attracted to the area, and they do sonar tests like crazy, like especially through the 87 through 2003, they were doing these sonar tests, just sweeping the lake. They couldn't get anything. None were ever successful.
Yeah, but we have better technology now. I feel like they should try it one more time.
They still are doing it though to this day. That was just...
I don't know if you know this, but Loch Ness and Stonehenge are on the same ley line.
Bringing in them ley lines.
So I know I have to bring in ley lines. So for me, I'm just like, are we sure that there's nothing going on there? Maybe he was paid. Marmaduke was paid by the government. This is really going conspiracy. Maybe Marmaduke was paid by the government to say that they were fake.
I just think there's a lot of science that proves that photo for sure can't be real when it's like a very grainy black and white photo where the monster's too close to the shore, the waves are too big, it's like the same size as him. So for sure that photo cannot be real. And it's scientifically impossible for an animal like that to lift its head above water like that. Because it's a reptile, he doesn't have, his neck would never be able to support itself like that. So there's a lot of evidence that supports there's no I don't think there's anything in the loch personally, but we can dive into that a little bit later. Looking into really the people who've studied it, they would also look into like, okay, if a beast like that lived here, what kind of life is living in this lake to sustain that? There's a lot of plankton, there's some small fish, but there's not enough to feed a giant beast like that. And they were saying like it probably wouldn't be just one beast, it would probably be a couple, you would think at least, to sustain itself and live that long. It's not just one really fucking old beast.
Yeah, but if they're coming in and out of different realities, then why would they eat here?
Science definitely wouldn't even look into that. So if we want to go mystical,
I know,
sure.
Scientists.
Right. If you want to go mystical, yeah, we can't really go off that. Where am I on my notes here? Sorry. No, you're
I'm
good.
sorry.
And a lot of the sightings, they do studies like at that lake and other lakes, just to like they put a pipe in the water and like they bob it up and down. And at Loch Ness, like it's usually like 2 in 10 people are like, oh my god, it's got to be Nessie, I saw it, and they like embellish what they saw. Where like 8 people will be like, it was just a pole. But those 2 people who are embellishing because they want to believe, you want to see that when you go there as a tourist, like you want to see Nessie. And they did the same experiment with that pole bobbing in and out of water at other bodies of water, and everyone was like, oh, it's just a pole, just some sort of pipe or some sort of log. So I normally am like, yeah, 100% I believe in things, but at this point in time, there's no proof of Loch Ness at this time. Like when you look into Bigfoot, there's so much freaking proof that it's like undeniable to me.
Right. But this, not so much.
Yeah, there's a lack of conclusive evidence for the Loch Ness. But he's remained really, really popular and profitable for the area. So like in the early, they said 21st century alone, it was about $80 million of just like tourism they think was brought in annually to Scotland's economy because of the Loch Ness. So it really helps.
I think that people in that area still believe in it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I can see why. Like there's ancient beliefs. It comes from a lot of like old texts and beliefs and sightings. Why wouldn't you believe in it? I think that there's eyewitness sightings more than you can find any other type of evidence, but it's really easy to see optical illusions above water, especially the way that the Loch Ness water goes. Like a log could be going the opposite direction of the waves, which causes a lot of people to see things. The way the cranes swim on top of the water. So that's how I feel about Loch Ness. I know you looked into a couple other lake monsters. What did you find? I just have to say this one thing about Loch Ness.
So I do remember there used to be this show on Sci-Fi called Fact or Faked. I don't know if you remember it, but I absolutely loved that show, and the kids and I would always watch it. But they did Loch Ness, and I think that they tested all sorts of things, and really it wasn't conclusive on whether they think that it was faked or not, because they tried like tires, they tried the logs, but logs don't move in the way that they felt that maybe that still picture did. It just didn't look the same. The thing with the paranormal is like, and especially from doing this podcast, I feel like I'm changing my tune on how I believe things, because like in that situation with the surgeon's photo, it's really my one side of my mind is like, okay, yeah, that's totally fake, but that wonderment side of me is like, wait a second, we don't have, science has not proven the paranormal to be faked, so why would this be? I don't know. I'm having a hard time
I
putting
just
my
don't
words
think
into
that
order,
like
but
a lake monster is paranormal. I think that would be just a creature that's unknown kind of thing. But I know how.
Unless it's interdimensional traveling.
Yes, goddamn portals and underwater dimensions for sure. I just don't. At this point in time, I wasn't able to see anything. Like that's usually what happens every time we do an episode. Like I wanted to believe in Roswell, but the information wasn't ready available. But then
right. But now I'm changing my mind about it.
And so with Loch Ness, I believed, and then going into it and looking at everything there, I'm like, they've swept that thing. There's no in and out. There's no salt water in there. There's no secret channels. Like. I don't think
but
so.
Everything paranormal, everybody's like, okay, well, we've got to debunk this. We've got to debunk it because it can't be real.
But not everything paranormal can be real. You have to be somewhere in the middle, and it's so hard. As a freaking lover of this shit, where does the line start to blur? Because you and I swap sides on a lot of things back and forth from week to week. And it's like, so this week true. I feel like I'm not so convinced on Nessie, Bessie. Talk to me in a week.
I'm still believing in Bigfoot.
100%.
Like 100%.
The more you look into Bigfoot, the more you're going to find. The more I looked into Nessie, absolutely. I found a whole lot of like trickery.
Right. So I got to say something different. So for me, I started working on Bessie. That's what I did. There were literally hundreds of events that started way back in the olden days. Let me just kind of go back a little bit. So Bessie, she is located, it's funny that it's another female, right? She's located in Lake Erie, Michigan. So in one of the Great Lakes. And Lake Erie is about 62 feet deep and about 9,910 miles in diameter. So that's quite a big lake. But the first sighting of her was back in 1793, and then since then it's like sighting after sighting after sighting. But I can't say that I found one that I was like, oh yeah, this is 100% real. I couldn't find a whole lot of photos. They also say in that area that similar monsters have been found between all of the lakes and rivers in the region. So for me, I'm like, how would this creature that they claim is Bessie, they claim this Bessie creature is seen in all of the Great Lakes and all of the rivers in that area. Yeah. So if she's traveling from one body of water to the next with, how can you do that? Because they're not all interconnected. They're like closed off lakes. That's what a lake is. But they said she's just this gray snake-like creature, somewhere between 30 and 40 feet long, and she's about a foot wide and has 4 flippers. So just imagine this thing being able to walk up on land. And so hundreds of people have said something about it. And I found one event that it kind of cracked me up when I was reading it, so I wanted to share it. So one eyewitness account happened in 1960 with a man named Ken Golick, and he was fishing off of a pier in Sandusky, Ohio, which is quite a ways away from Lake Erie, right? But it's still Bessie that he saw, and it was 11 a.m. in the morning on a clear, cold day, and he claimed he heard rats near the pier. So he threw rocks towards the sound to kind of get them to scatter away, and then he saw a very large creature come out of the water. And he said the creature was kind of a cigar-shaped and measured about 1 to 2 feet wide, and the creature came out of the lake, pushing itself up onto the shore with its 4 flippers. And then it rested on a nearby beach. And he was like, oh, what's going on here? No. But remember, this was 1960s, so you don't have a cell phone. And even if you did, you may be in such shock that you couldn't take a picture of it. even when he saw it, I think that it said something like, I didn't just see that. I did not just see whatever that was that came out of the water. But there's hundreds of events with this little Bessie creature that are exactly the same as his all over in that area.
That's the common theme with Nessie Bessie type creatures is eyewitness accounts. But
Lots of eyewitness accounts, but not a whole lot of proof.
Right. So is it people wanting to see something? Not in this guy's case. He didn't want to see that.
Yeah, he didn't want to see that. He's like, he was afraid to talk about it afterwards. Like, he didn't want to talk about it. He's like, I don't want to tell people about that. Like, I don't even know if the name that I gave was his real name.
Yeah. A lot of people who seem credible don't want to be associated with this stuff.
Right. So then I came across this other one that was kind of similar to the Crater Lake monster, which Crater Lake, if no one knows where this is, it's in South Central Oregon. And if you should do yourself a favor and Google Crater Lake because it is super beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I'm trying to remember if I've been to Craters Lake or just Devil's Lake. Was Crater? I'm going to look it up right now to see if I can spark some memories.
Yeah, Crater Lake is more up the
No,
mountain.
this one's the bigger one, huh? I've never been. My parents didn't love me enough.
It's
no.
huge. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful because even in the summertime they usually have snow up there.
Nice. It's really beautiful. Dang.
It's very beautiful. Yeah, so it's a little over 20 square miles in diameter and just over 1,900 feet deep. And the water is just this really deep blue and it's very breathtaking. The history of the lake is that it was formed when a volcano on the site collapsed about 7,700 years ago. So they think that potentially that the volcano erupted and then collapsed in on itself. And then that's what created this lake.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, so all of that water is just fresh water that came down from the sky, but it's just this deep blue. And when you see it, it's like, it's hard to explain. Like when I've been there, it's like you go there and everything around you is just this silence, kind of like that silence when you're walking outside in the snow.
That's what I thought.
That kind of surreal silence.
Just looking at the photos, it's like this beautiful stillness.
Yeah, beautiful stillness. So it's just silent.
And it's like a perfect freaking circle almost.
Exactly. It's so awesome and just gorgeous. So the stories are, there are these Native American Indians called the Klamath, which are the Indians that lived in the area before Americans came. And they tell stories that the lake is kind of a gateway between worlds. This is so weird that this one is exactly like the stories that you were talking about in Ireland. But they have a lot of stories of people and animals being drawn to the lake as if mesmerized. And then they disappear.
Wow.
So they have all of these tribal stories. I know, right?
They drowned and or go to another dimension.
Yeah, they think that they go to another dimension. So because other things have also come back. And so
like Pet Cemetery?
No, more like something came over here that wasn't here before.
What if it's like a swap?
Yeah, maybe.
Ooh.
Maybe. So the Native Americans, they referred to it as Lost Lake because so many people went missing when near it and never to be seen again. And then aside from those strange disappearances, there are many tales of monsters living in the lake. So people who have worked there, people who live in the area, even I've known about this pretty much my whole life because there were stories when I was a kid that I remember seeing on the news. It was kind of like one of those legends where people are laughing about it, but it could be true. So they're not going to discredit it. And since I'm kind of a local, I feel like it's real. But anyways, this creature that they see bears a strong resemblance to the Loch Ness Monster. And so there was one story that I came across that actually was in several different papers across the United States. So I kind of wanted to talk about this one. In May 2002, there was the appearance of the monster. So there was an excerpt from 3 local papers that tell of kind of this woman. Her name is Maddie Hatcher. They give a bunch of backstory about her, which I don't know what the importance of that is, maybe to credit whether she was talking about I mean, whether we could believe her or not, but she was just this ordinary, everyday person. She was from, I believe she was from the Carolinas, and she had decided to come live over here in Oregon because it was so beautiful, and she wanted a little bit more laid back life. And she was just out on the lake with her friends in a boat, and then all of a sudden she saw something in the lake, and she said she just got really scared all of a sudden. You know, she could see something swimming closer and closer. It was like she was kind of peering over the boat, and something was coming up out of the water, and she realized it was really large. And so this is the quote that she says in her interview. "That thing must have been a block long," she said. "I've never been so scared in my life. What we saw that day was a monster. To me, it looked like a dragon. I know why the Indians call that place Lost Lake. They say monsters live in it, and I believe them. I know because I saw one there." And so then Maddie and her friends, they went back to land as fast as they could because they were totally scared. And they told their story, but nobody really believed them. So after, I mean, she only talked about it once, once. And then it just kind of spread across the United States and then local newspapers. And then that was it. Like she didn't talk about it ever again.
Wow, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. See, now I'm like, well, I believe that one.
Right? I mean, it's kind of similar to Loch Ness if you think about it. I mean, the Klamath Indians, they really do believe that there's this go-between worlds. But they thought that other world was a bad one. They said demons would come out of it. The lore is actually fascinating. They said that evil things would come out of it.
I mean, that makes
but
sense.
Also big hairy creatures.
A what?
Just so you know, big hairy creatures would also come out of it. And it wasn't just inside the lake, it was around the lake itself.
Big hairy creatures?
Yes, big hairy men would come out of it.
Like Bigfoot?
Like Bigfoot.
It's always about you, Bigfoot.
We love you. About Bigfoot.
I love it. I would love to see like a Chewbacca-like entity riding like Daenerys Stormborn on a dragon out of freaking Crater Lake.
Yeah. And then there's just this deafening silence, and then you just see it coming out of the water.
Yeah. Just like Neverending Story, or Free Willy style, I should say, like fist up in the air. Yeah! As it flies over you.
And it's like the power of graceful. No.
Yes, this is our childhood dreams coming true. You know, I really would love to go check out Crater Lake now and just get a feel for it.
Next time you come.
I know.
I feel like this list keeps getting longer and longer. I'm like, hey, when you come next time, we're going to go here. I
want to see the giant mushroom that's in Oregon. I want to see the Oregon Vortex. I want to see Bigfoot. Like, we just have a lot of expeditions.
I know, we're going down to the McKenzie River, and we're going to do a squatching hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So what do you think? Do you think there's credence to any of these? Nessie, Bessie, Crater Lake?
Well, I already told you my feelings on the loch. I feel like the loch, no, because it's heavily examined. With Crater Lake, knowing a tidbit of information, my imagination is running wild, and it would be great. I think that there has to be some sort of magical energy. At the core, water is freaking powerful. At its core, the earth and the animals are powerful. As a Wiccan, I believe in that stuff. And there's something mystical there. Is it manifesting in a freaking water beast coming in and out of portals? I don't know. I really don't know if I believe in that, but I believe in something greater than I can ever understand. So I'm going to say maybe.
Maybe. You're right. It's hard for me because I want to believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but I don't know if I do 100%. I definitely believe in Crater Lake.
I'm wondering.
Bessie. I was going to say Bessie. I'm not so sure.
Right.
There's been way more sightings of her than I ever anticipated. It was just one story after another, after another, after another.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, has anyone scuba dived in Crater Lake? Like, what kind of expeditions have been done there?
They've never been able to really fully get to the bottom because it's so deep.
That'd be so scary and dark and cold.
And the water is so dark. Yeah, the water is so dark that most of their equipment can't see through it. It's not murky. It's clear in a way, but the depth, I mean the deepness of that blue color is unlike anything else you see in any lake, right? It's just so dark.
Right, and I mean, like, as far as the ocean's surfaces in general, all of the bodies of water on Earth, I think we've only as humans explored 5% of that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much about water that we don't understand.
Right.
And I know there's like a lot of lore about aliens or actually living in our oceans and Atlantis. And I feel like the more I look into that, maybe I'll have a different perspective on dimensions in the water.
Right.
It's definitely something I'm intrigued by as a Pisces, as a weirdo and a witch.
Exactly. It's definitely a good paranormal thing. I think for me, I'm really fascinated by what the legends were from the Native Americans.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, it's like, that is a piece of our history, you guys. And there has to be some sort of truth out of it. It's not just a myth. I fully believe in what they're telling us.
Yeah, I did come across some Native Americans as well, like in the book about Loch Ness that I was reading. They was talking about how I guess it's in northern India, there's a tribe, the Potawatomi tribe, and they were speaking of monsters in Devil's Lake at that place. I guess it's called Bass Lake. And around that area, they would find these fossilized, like, mastodon bones. And Indians at the time were believing that the bones belonged to whatever was in that lake monster. And so when, like, settlers came, they would tell them, like, oh, see these bones? That's what lives in the water. And that's kind of where this prehistoric monster legend kind of was birthed, apparently, in that area. And so they like made an exhibition in it's called the Crystal Palace in London. This was like 1851. They had an exhibition and they had all these different types of monsters there. And to me, I'm like, this sounds amazing. And it was like this awesome exhibition. Does. And I think they had like a sea serpent thing there going on, like a little like display. And that's just where this huge imagination sparked again. Like, people saw that and they were like, this is amazing. Of course, that's what's in our lakes. And so this ancient tradition of, like, Nessie really, really has old school origins of superstition and mysticism and kind of, like, confused zoology all at the same time.
Right. Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, maybe it was all real way back in the day, but maybe it's not.
That's my explanation for everything. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it's like fairies and elves.
Like Lord of the Rings.
And gnomes and stuff. Like Lord of the Rings. Maybe it's like that kind of stuff, but because we don't... I do believe in fairies. I do. Because we're all saying, nah, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. It's not giving it enough power to be real.
Right. We are dreamers.
I know, right? That's my Pisces coming out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we sort of kind of believe in you, Nessie. No.
If there's aliens involved or another plane of existence,
right?
Interdimensional being.
Well, thank you for listening, and make sure to join us next Wednesday when we're going to be traveling to the edge of the Earth while discussing the Flat Earth conspiracy theory. So don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can check out our blog at cousinscoven.home.blog. And we're on Podomatics, Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else podcasts can be found. And send in your cauldron topic ideas, or if you have questions about witchiness or anything paranormal you've experienced yourself, send that in to cousinscoven2@gmail.com.
May you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.